I can't see who's connected for some reason, but all right. Hello. Welcome, everyone. I can't see who's connected, but I'm guessing people are there. So welcome to everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're really excited to have you. Thanks for joining us for this social media session. For the next more or less 45 minutes, we'll be discussing social media trends, personal branding for public figures, and company branding and positioning. Before I introduce myself, I would really appreciate it if you could write to us in the chat and just write your country, just so we can see where everyone's coming from. Just type in your country, and then we'll see where around the world everyone's coming from. My name is Prody. I'm the founder of Prodigy Consulting. I'm based in Belgium, was born and raised in the DRC. Joining me here are Harmonie from Canada and Keza from South Africa. And our common denominator, besides social media, of course, is the DRC, where we all lived at some point in time. Let's see, where's everyone coming from? The US, hello. Congo Democratic, hello. Wow, Spain, Senegal, excellent. Kenya, whoa. We've got a good range of people coming from Europe, Africa, the US. I could say the four corners of the world.
Nice.
Excellent. Nice. So let me just share my screen here, my full screen, my presentation mode. So we can start, yeah. Of course, we wouldn't organize this session without Africa Communications Week. So thank you to Aniola and Annie, the co-founders, and the ACW team. If anyone doesn't know about Africa Communications Week, well, if you want to change perceptions about Africa and take part in the continent's transformation, well, this is the place to be. Welcome. We all use social media, but why? Why? I would say, I guess, why would you say social media trends are important? Social media is the perfect place to find and connect with target customers, potential partners, target audiences. The more you use tools that are trending on social media, the more the platform's algorithm will favor your channel. So basically, following social media trends can help you fuel your strategy and make you stand out. Some trends to look out for in 2021. These are just some examples. There's much more. So I've listed out 5: personalized marketing, augmented reality, social commerce, short form video, and virtual reality. With personalized marketing, companies engage with their target audience directly and individually. It's really trendy on social media because people love to feel special. They love to feel like they're heard. You address them with their first name, and well, when you can offer them tailored experience, don't hesitate for your company. One of the sessions yesterday focused on the future of work and artificial intelligence, which is really on the rise. Well, while AI refers to the use of algorithms and statistical models, on the other hand, you have augmented reality. Augmented reality is a technology that lets you superimpose digital content. Like here you have a picture of a table and we've added a tree trunk on it. AR really increases engagement and interaction and provides a richer user experience. And then we've got social commerce. I'm sure you've seen on Instagram and Facebook a shopping option. Well, that's basically social commerce. It's a mix of social media and online media that supports social interactions to assist online buying and selling products directly on a social media platform rather than having to go to the website. So there's less action that's required and more chances of getting your sales. And then we've got short form video. YouTube has been really popular. It has replaced TV for many people. But then we've got TikTok coming into the picture now. We can clearly see that video content, full video content on YouTube is the now, but short form video content like TikTok is the future. So when it comes to video marketing, less is more is the new reality. Virtual reality, using virtual reality can really provide people with more meaningful interactions virtually. And social media platforms know that it is the next big thing. So keep an eye on this because these social trends will only be growing faster. Make sure you're up to date. How to stand out? Well, first of all, use social media channels that are not filled with advertising. Besides the ones we usually use, Twitter, Facebook, I've listed 3 options. You've got Pinterest. Many of us know Pinterest, but kind of think that it might not be for companies, might not be fit for companies or businesses. Well, it's a visual discovery engine where you can find all types of ideas, literally all types. You've got billions of pins, they call it pins, that could spark your inspiration. You can, for personal use, you can find recipes, or if you're a cook or a chef, you can find different inspiration for recipes. And plus, Pinterest users have the highest purchase intent compared to other social media users. So if you're selling a product, even maybe services, it might be the place to be. When it comes to podcasts, it doesn't really matter what you're offering. Podcasts could always be useful. It's a great way to reach your target audience, really. But keep in mind that to reach your target audience, you have to know who they are. You really have to know them well. Last year, we faced challenges with the pandemic situation. Most of us were not able to attend events or organize events or interact with people, even family members. It went as far as that. So the release of tools like Clubhouse appeared as an opportunity to organize and attend events with different sessions, rooms, and build communities. I'm not going to go into details about Clubhouse, but if you're intrigued about the subject, there was a session yesterday about Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces. So the replay is available on the ACW YouTube page. Feel free to go through it. And then we've got Quora. Quora is an American question and answer website where questions are asked, answered, followed, and edited by internet users, either factually or in the form of opinions. It's really, really powerful. It doesn't just give you another way to reach your audience, but it provides a roadmap. It really gives you a roadmap onto what they're looking for. So you can adapt your business according to what your customers are looking for. You can even follow topics on Quora to see what your competitors are doing. So you're always on top of the game. And there's a list of different marketing tips with Quora here that I'm sure you've read already. All right, and then of course we can't talk about social media without talking about influencers. When Instagram was introduced, it was very, very trendy to use influencers. A lot of brands were hiring the most famous influencers as part of their e-commerce strategy, but times have changed now. So for sure, of course, influencers they still play a big role when it comes to branding and exposure, but statistics show that smaller influencers have a higher engagement rate compared to bigger influencers. So probably because smaller influencers, people relate more to smaller influencers. They're easier to relate. So influencers still play a big role in social media marketing, but you don't always have to release the big bucks. You can go for smaller influencers and use less money. Again, yesterday, UNDP's regional director mentioned that there are much more African influencers than we know. So I would not agree. I would definitely agree, of course, with her. These influencers could be gold for your branding. So before you go far in your search for brand ambassadors, look around you, really. It might save you a lot of money. All right. That's it for what's trending on social media. Now let's go from influencers to personal branding. My next speaker now is Harmonie Umwali. She's the communications and digital advisor of KRM & Co. Consulting. She has worked for all four major Canadian news networks. She's from the DRC and Rwanda and currently lives in Canada. Harmonie will talk to us about personal branding and her experience as an advisor for public figures. The floor is yours, Harmonie. I'll just stop sharing my screen.
Yes.
So you can share yours.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Cody, for this wonderful introduction. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just one thing, sorry, everyone. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. We'll answer them at the end. Thanks.
All right. So my name is Harmonie Umwali, and first of all, thank you, Cody, for this wonderful presentation. So today I'll be talking about personal branding, and the type of personal branding I usually do, as Prodi mentioned, is I work with public figures and government agencies. And I have to say that a lot of my clients, 90% of my clients are from Francophone countries, okay? French-speaking countries, African countries. And I've noticed that we're a little bit behind the eight ball when it comes to utilizing social media as a form of communication, as a tool to communicate with either our constituencies or the world. And so a lot of them understood, in my opinion, the power of Twitter due to one person. And I have to credit the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, because that was his go-to communication tools. And I think Donald Trump put the world almost on our, stopped the world in the way he was using this very unconventional way to communicate to world leaders and the world at large. And I think a lot of our leaders start paying attention, I think more attention than in the previous years, because many of them were used to traditional form of communication, whether it's through public, a press release from their press secretaries to their spokesperson, or on TV or radio. But now social media has it's almost like people have discovered a new way to communicate. And so I've had a lot of people who are really interested in using this tool, because now you can actually speak to the diaspora and really everybody really around the world, because a lot of people have social media. And so what we do, I work with clients in developing and implementing their strategic communications. And I often do this with, either it's press, publicity. A lot of them are really interested in their e-reputation, what is said about them, how they present their image or their brand. But, I'm talking about particularly public figures. And this is something that they're really, really interested in. Now they're using social media in order to be able to, better communicate about who they are or the government agency that they work for. And so what my clients are typically looking for is credibility, okay? They want to make sure that people know that they're out there. And many of them also ask about how to increase their follower counts. In social media, whenever you have a big following, that tells the world that you're quite influential, or at least important. And a lot of them, they would ask me, say, hey, I only have like 10,000 followers. How do I have 50, 100. And so a lot of them are really, really interested. And keep in mind, these are public figures. And so for them, follower count is very important because it tells them how popular they are, especially if they're running for office, or how people respond to their message. So increasing the follower count is one of the things that they're really interested in. And because of who they are and what they do, they are seeking some sort of protection from imposters, right? These people are very vulnerable to people impersonating them, and obviously deceiving the public in either asking people for money or pretending to be who they're not. And so a lot of them say, hey, Harmony, I've got all these people pretending to be me. How can you help me or protect me from all of these imposters? So that's one of the things that they're also looking for. And the big thing is really their reputation. A lot of them care about what people say about them, what is written about them. And obviously social media, you can't stop people from, saying what they want to say about you, but they're really, really interested in polishing their image. And beyond social media, they would use tools like, we work on their Wikipedia page or, SEO, search engine optimization. So whenever you Google them, they want to make sure that whatever searches appear are, obviously good, searches, or, things are being spoken to them about from a positive light. So these are the things that they're typically looking for when I work with them. And so I want to talk about the number one request that I get. Absolutely, the number one request that I get, it is to be verified. And so early on, I talk about protecting themselves from imposters. Obviously, there's nothing, I can't say that this will get you protected 100% because someone can hack into your account. Someone who has access to your passwords can obviously use that. But being verified is a very important thing because it lets users know that they are actually dealing with you. You are authentic. You are, it is a legitimate account. Obviously, whenever you interact with a celebrity, you want to make sure that it is, you are interacting with Oprah and not just, obviously an imposter. And, depending on the kind of clients that I have, some are really on top of their game. They actually are the ones tweeting or publishing on their Facebook page. And in other cases, I find that depending on their own personality, they would hire a team to be able to communicate on their behalf, right? They have a comms team and they have a community manager that handles all of their social media accounts. But in all, this I found is the number one request that I get. And so verification quickly, I share why it is important because it lets users know that you are, the account is of public interest, it is authentic, and it is legitimate. And it reduces the risk of being impersonated. And so I say reduce because no one can guarantee you from being impersonated, right? And so obviously in order to receive a blue badge, obviously you have to be notable, you have to be obviously sort of important, I guess. But, I think all these social media platforms are the ones judging and determining if, your account is worth being verified. And, this is a status symbol, right? I mean, a lot of them, they want to be kind of, I'm important, I'm cool, so I want to be verified. So this is also a status symbol for many of them. And so that's definitely the number one request that I get. So I want to talk about common mistakes that people do. A lot of my clients, do's and don'ts, and what I believe work and what doesn't work when it comes to their communications. So the do's, I always say, be active, communicate, engage, tweet, write articles. Do this as often as you can because people want to make sure that they are in the know. You communicate with them, you write, you let them know what's going on with, whether it's your government agency, you let them know what's going on with you. And so depending on really the personality, and I really have to stress the importance of the actual, the individual himself or herself. There are some public figures who are on top of their game. They are very interested in communicating. And you've got more of like an older, generation, like an old school type of, world leader who isn't really much into, social media. So they would rather have a community manager or someone from their team do the tweeting, I guess. So this is something that I encourage people to do. Don't go weeks without tweeting. Don't go weeks without, letting people know what's going on in your department or, whatever it is that you do, and engage. Make sure you engage. So tweeting is one thing. Engaging is really establishing this interaction with people who follow you, people who ask you questions. It's always nice. I had my own personal experience when, this is not a world leader. It's a public figure. She's an actress. So I tagged, there's a book that I purchased, and I tagged the author of the book, and that particular actress liked my tweet. So I felt somewhat important. It's good to have someone who actually likes retweets. So it makes you feel like these people actually read our tweets, they read our publications, and they enjoy what we have to say. So engage with followers, especially if you're a public figure. It's important for your followers to know that you actually read and care about what they have to say. And one of the things that I really suggest is do Q&A sessions, right? Do question and answer sessions, and so that people get to know who you are or what you're about. And then, proofreading is obviously very important, because I have seen in the past government agencies who misspell world leaders, like names, like you don't do that, or tag the wrong person. One case that comes in mind is, and that particular government shall remain nameless, okay? I don't want to shame them, but they tagged the African Union. But the African Union, if everybody knows the Twitter handle of African Union is quite tricky. It starts with an underscore. So you don't just do at African Union. You have to start with an underscore. So that particular government tagged the wrong person, essentially, thinking they were tagging African Union. So everybody went to the wrong account. So make sure, if you can, proofread or schedule your tweets ahead of time. Make sure you presidents, make sure you know how to spell it. I don't know how complicated it is. Make sure you know how to spell their name, okay? That's a sign of respect. So make sure you do that. And don't. 2 is a company, 3 is a crowd. What I mean by that is don't have too many cooks in the kitchen. Don't have a lot of community managers. So next thing you know, you've got different people handling your accounts, and then people obviously can, with this phone, you can, if you're handling 2, 3 different accounts, by mistake, you can actually tweet, thinking you're tweeting on behalf of Harmony, but I'm tweeting on behalf of the president. So I've seen those kind of mistakes. So don't have a lot of people, managing or tweeting on your behalf. I would say minimum or maximum 2, yourself and a trusted advisor or someone that that they can, that will not make those kind of mistakes often. Don't copy and paste. Be authentic, be you, be real. It's good to be inspired by other people, but make sure you have a little touch of your own uniqueness, right? Don't just copy what the French are doing. Don't copy what, South Africans are doing. Do something that is authentic to who you are, or your department, or your country. And then don't buy love, all right? Followers are often associated with fans. And I think it's a big mistake to think that your followers are your fans. No, you've got followers who are haters. You have followers who do dislike you. You have followers who just are your competitors, your competition. They just want to keep an eye on you. So don't buy fake followers. I know it's very important, because that shows the world that you're influential or you're very important. But you know what? Sooner or later, Twitter, at least I know Twitter, they do, once in a while, they do purges. So they cancel and remove all these bots, BOTS, all these fake accounts run by computer-generated accounts. So next thing you know, you go from 100,000 followers to 50,000. So don't buy that, because there are a lot of third-party applications that can get you to buy followers. So don't do that. Choosing the right username. For me, I'm all about picking the right name. And so in here, I said, have some continuity. If I'm the prime minister, or if I'm the minister of I don't know, foreign affairs, if my Twitter handle is Harmony Umwali, I'm going to make sure that Facebook is Harmony Umwali, that Twitter is Harmony Umwali, and not, Umwali Harmony 13, 1, and then my maiden name, a married name, and don't do that. Just make sure you have continuity and find a really good username, especially for government agencies, okay? Find a username, and even if it's unavailable, there are ways for you to actually get them. So I've helped clients who say, hey, Harmony, I really want this Visit Congo, but it's been taken. we can work on that. We can negotiate with the owner of the handle. Usernames are also called handle. Or we can ask the social media platforms for us to release that username. And I've done it for one particular head of state whose name was taken by someone else. And we had to negotiate in order for Twitter to release that username for him, because it was his name. And so we had to present papers and say, you know what, I am Emmanuel Macron, or I am, Paul Kagame, or whatever. So, or, Tshisekedi. So you could actually do that. And then, if you guys want to know more, I can definitely share you some tips. There are no guarantees, but I always say, don't put your head down. If it's unavailable, there's always a way for you to ask, right? And you can actually get it. And then use tools at your disposal. And I love what Podi said in her presentation. She talked about influencers. Social media influencers are one of the best tools you could use. You want to talk about your ministry, your department, use social media influencers, right? People who have a large following, they can retweet, and then that's when you get the word out about your company or yourself or the things that you do. You could use TweetDeck. This is an interface. It's like a dashboard, and this is really good for journalists. So it gets you to see different timelines on one, full screen, and then you can manage and look at all the things that are being said. You can do tools like a campaign. If you want to increase followers, you can work with Twitter or Facebook to have a follower campaign. That's in order to boost and increase the amount of followers. Instead of buying them, you can actually have targeted campaigns in order to boost your followers. And then there's all these third-party applications for specific services like media monitoring. So all of these tools are at your disposal. Some are free, some are paid, but make sure you know about them. And then last but not least, I'm running over by a couple minutes, by maybe 1 second or so. Assemble your dream team, okay? Have people with knowledge, passion, and creativity. These are people who are going to make your brand, your organization, and yourself better, right? I always find that people with knowledge will add value to yourself, your department, or your brand. And passionate people will always go the extra mile for you. They will do the things that you don't even pay them to do, just because they're so passionate about doing the job that you've asked them to do. And then creativity, innovation, use different tools to, again, increase engagement. Is like Podi said, there's all these tools that make the Twitter experience, the Facebook experience much more interactive and fun, and use all of that and have people in your team that provide that for you, right? Instead of just having this boring text or tweets, pictures, just make sure you add some spice and some fun to it. And then, and have your dream team. Thank you. That's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Harmony. And up next, we have Keza. She's the creative director of Soul Providers. She's Rwandese living in South Africa. Keza will tell us more about company branding and positioning. So the floor is yours, Keza.
Thank you. Let me share my screen.
And again, please feel free to put in your questions in the chat. We have a few. Thank you. We'll answer them at the end.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pradip, for the introduction. And hi, everybody. I'll be talking about company branding on social media. And just a little bit about me and where I work. I am Rwandese. I live in South Africa. I've lived in Congo. I've lived in Swaziland. I've lived in Belgium. And because of that, I'm very curious about people and how they behave, and somehow that curiosity led me into a space in advertising, and my love for aesthetics and my love for African people. And at Soul Providers, what we do is we focus on being a conscious agency and having conscious-led work, which means that it doesn't matter if we're selling lotion or we're creating a huge production, the main thing is the integrity of the work and keeping the people that we're talking to in mind and having them as our key goal. One of the things that we always talk about is, are we on brand? Are we on brand? We always get a brief which is then, interpreted into different deliverables. And the main thing that you should always go to is, are you on brand? But then what is that? If you look at the dictionary definition, when it comes to branding, the promotion of a particular product or company by means of advertising and distinctive design. Distinctive wording or design used to identify a particular brand. Now, please guys, when you hear branding, just tell me in the comments below what words come to mind. And Pradi, you can just shout out some of the things that people say. If they say anything.
Name recognition, we have one. Anyone else? Name recognition.
Yes.
Anyone else? Image from Sandra. Trust.
Mm-hmm.
Identity.
Yes.
First impression.
Yes.
Logo. Heritage.
Awesome.
Those are good ones.
Yeah, those are great. Those are great. Because initially, when you used to hear, branding, it would be, physical assets. It would be your logo. It would be the colors that you use, the font that you use. And if you talk about soft points, it would be, like status. That you would kind of gravitate to when it came to a logo or brand. And today, branding is so much more than that. It's more than just, creative assets. It's everything. And here I've defined it as your brand is the ultimate expression of a company's identity, your company's identity, which includes core values, culture, your ethics, your positioning. And when all these characteristics come together and are communicated, they play a huge role in how you're being perceived. Exactly like someone said, your impression. And that perception is something that in social media today is something that is very, very vulnerable, because today you could be loved, tomorrow you're trash, and cancel culture is very, very much alive. And yes, there's some benefits to it, but it can be very detrimental to brands. And just an example, one of the most leading brands and iconic brands, Nike, again, if you're thinking about the branding, the swoosh, just do it, has been the same forever. But when you think about how it has evolved over the years, being one of the brands that has been at the forefront of endorsements of superstars, there came a point where there was a rise, especially in the US, where more activism has become prominent, with regards to police brutality, Black Lives Matter, and just in the world, if you talk about inequality, even here in South Africa. And these things cannot be kept quiet about anymore. And so Nike, when they did the campaign with Colin Kaepernick, it was such a critical point in the way they were perceived in that moment, because right after that, they dropped in shares, 3.2% shares. And they knew that that was a risk, but in the long term, they knew that they needed to change the way they were perceived for them to still be relevant. and to be regarded as a keeper for their target audience. Differentiation is key when you have through your brand strategy. Before you go on social media, before you do anything, you need to know who you are as a company and as a brand, what you stand for, everything that you need to do to navigate these spaces. Because again, these spaces are not for the faint-hearted, and you don't want to waste your money either. And so when we talk about social media and the role that it plays, social media is a great tool. It's a great tool to amplify your brand. It's a great tool to get reach. In Africa and even South Africa, we always talk about, oh my God, Facebook, who's even on Facebook anymore? But there's still people are still on Facebook. The majority of people in South Africa are still on Facebook. And so you can't deny or ignore it. And so it's just important to know that you can track your results. You can actually check your return on investment compared to, billboards or TV ads. And the best part about social media is the conversation that you can have and the ability to experiment. You don't have to be a static image of yourself. You can change every single day, literally. Okay, and what can you harness on social media? I think doesn't matter what changes, how the algorithms change. There's some things that will stay the same, and that is you can harness awareness, promotion, conversation, storytelling, action, and innovation and creativity. With awareness, I mean, that is if you're starting up, if you are launching a new brand, whatever you need to have eyeballs, it can happen. And that's by having targeted campaigns, by having objectives around your content, whether it's engagement, you need to be intentional about targeting your ads, about promoting your posts, and just overall making sure that whoever you want the content to be seen by is seen. And you spoke about influencers earlier, Pradi, and we call them micro-influencers. Micro-influencers are so important. And I know this is always a contention with budgets and all of that, but really micro-influencers are so vital to kind of community building and building that credibility because people believe them.
Mm-hmm.
Then when it comes to conversations, this is, you see this on Twitter, Clubhouse, as you mentioned. You can engage with your audience, join the conversations that matter. Customers have a say on social media. Brands are under a microscope, and they are no longer, excuses are no longer taken lightly. So you have to keep that in mind when going onto a digital space and knowing the things that could happen. And in terms of action is so important when creating movement. You need to create leads. This is very important, especially when talking about a return on investment, and making sure that the client knows that, yes, we can convert these people. Yes, you can do this. Yes, we can lead them to your website. So user journey is super important, and using social media platforms as part of your user journey so that you can get to your overall goal. It could be sales, it could be awareness, it could be virality, which is a word that we hate in advertising. But yeah. And then creativity and innovation, which is my favorite. the possibilities are endless, and this is we see more and more, especially with collaborations, either cross pollinations with brands or with influencers, and just the platforms themselves, are changing all the time. So using them optimally is a great way to use these platforms. And then tactics for success on social media. These, again, are just like must do. Know your audience. That's like, it's critical. Like, your audience is, and by that I mean your target audience, have your research, do your research. What are they interested in? How is your product, your service going to associate? How are you going to associate with them? How are you going to make sure that you attract their attention? Which leads to a brand voice and tone, which we're talking about your branding strategy and your positioning. This should, come through on your social media platforms above the line. A lot of things that we see, especially as someone who works for an agency, is that you have, lots of people who are, like you said, Amrani, about there's more cooks, in the kitchen. And sometimes you can have disjointed messaging or tone because, yes, you're all working for the same company or brand, but your messaging might be disjointed because there are different cooks in the kitchen. And as a company, it is your responsibility to make sure that that is seamless throughout your platforms. Brand aesthetic, I live by this. This is super important. How you look has everything to do with how you present yourself. Is it authentic? Is it, are you using stock imagery, or are you using real people? There's nothing worse than someone telling you, oh, this person is from Nigeria, but then your content is coming from South Africa. Guys, it's so important to be as authentic as possible. Spend some money on that. Localization, super important, especially when we're talking to brands who are coming from other countries. Could be European countries coming into Africa. Copy and paste, again, maybe that could have worked years ago, a decade ago, but now in this time, you need to do much more work in actually knowing who you're speaking to in order for your product or service or whatever you're selling to be successful in that market. And that means, having content or advertising or anything in their language, in their aesthetic, in their context. And that can only be done by actually immersing yourself in those markets. Be ready to respond. And I think this is just in general when it comes to reputational management, CRM, always be ready, always be on in order for your presence to be felt and for you to be credible. If you're not consistent with that, then you're not taken seriously. And then lastly, have some chankura. We need that money for reach. And I know people are always like, oh, organic reach. Yes, to a certain extent. And if you're going to do that, that means your content has to be dope as hell for that to happen. So either way, you need to spend money on something. But it's always easier to invest maybe on one platform and be strategic about what you're using, and use that cleverly instead of trying to spread yourself thin. And then this is just thinking about social media platforms strategically. You don't have to use all of them if it's not for you. I think it's always better to, if you're going to be a brand that maybe needs to have an e-commerce commerce functionality, then Facebook and Instagram are for you. If you are an organization that needs conversation, talkability, then you have Twitter, or Clubhouse, like you mentioned, which is so great for, you know, think tanks, for professionals to get together and create something very quickly. Those are great. So just strategically thinking about how to use platforms instead of, you know, repurposing, which a lot of companies do. Sometimes you don't have to do that, and rather spend your efforts on things that will give you the best return on investment. And then these are just some examples of brands that are killing it in terms of the African context. Are there any South Africans in here? I'm going to be like Chicken Licken, and no one knows what it is. But Chicken Licken is a chicken restaurant, fast food takeaway, but they are so good at their branding and their social media. They focus on being authentic and on storytelling. They really think about how South Africans can reimagine their stories. And I'll leave some so you can play these in your own time. But the recent one, which got so much engagement, was Knight Rider. It was like a redoing of Knight Rider, which really is just about selling sliders, but just like for a flex, and also just for the sake of nostalgia, they did a whole thing around it. Oops.
We've only got 5 minutes left.
Okay, let me jump quickly. Then we have Hanifa. This is a Congolese fashion designer who basically used her social media platforms creatively by creating the first 3D virtual catwalk during the pandemic, which for me was amazing, especially as an African designer. She did it first. And this is just thinking about creativity and thinking out of the box when it comes to using your social media platforms. Cool. Then you have Nando's. Here is talking to tone. Tone is everything when you're thinking about copywriting and delivery. Execution is key, especially if you're just using copy as your basis of communication. And they do it so well. And then, you know, as a biased plug, I had to put Visit Rwanda in here, and they are doing such a good job in terms of just promoting the country and making sure that they actually bring the country to the world and the world to them. As you see with sponsorships, partnerships. Currently, they're hosting the Basketball African League, and they are using those kind of activations back into their socials creatively. And then things that you should remember: be authentic. Consumers have a say, so listen. Brands are not invincible. Stay ahead of trends. Be agile. Things can change anytime. The pandemic showed us that. Know what you don't know and use experts and invest where it matters. And lastly, be consistent always. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Excellent. Wow. Thank you. How insightful. Well, let me read some of the questions, or maybe Amani, I don't know if you spotted the first question addressed to you.
Okay. And which one was that? You know, could you read it from? If you can count for the number. Is it which one? Sorry, Prodi.
1 second.
Wow.
Anyway, there's quite a few.
In the point, okay, I'm trying to tag. Is it?
No. When it comes to personal branding, which social media tool is your favorite one?
Oh, yes. I like short form video. I like that. I like that a lot because it's I like the fact that it's very interactive. You can, it's visual, and I'm big on visual and moving images, and so it's definitely one of my favorites, or my favorite.
Okay. And there was, this is addressed to me. If you could quantify the number of followers to help distinguish big and smaller influencers. Well, I would say smaller influencers or micro influencers have about 10,000 followers. On Instagram, for example, in order to be verified, you have to have at least 10,000 followers. So it starts from 10,000. What would you ladies say?
That's a good question. I mean,
okay.
Sometimes it's not about numbers. Sometimes I think it's about what you were saying, which is the credibility of that person.
Totally. But sometimes people look at the number of followers and to them, it looks like that's what the numbers is what's quantifying and showing the credibility, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a great question. And then we have one more question from Michelle Muita. Where to source good stock photos? I work for an international organization and struggle with sourcing empowering photos of Africans in Africa.
I have two. I can give that answer quickly.
Go ahead.
Pexels, please.
Yeah, Pexels is good.
Yeah, use Pexels. So Pexels. And you could literally legit on the search bar type Black people, Africans, and you will literally see, like social media, Black people or Africans you will see anything Black people. Okay. And Prodi, really quick, there's someone who asked me a question, so I'm just going to answer live, and that's Jeannette Abi Saleh. She asked me, do you not need a following of a certain amount to qualify for being verified? No, you do not. You do not, absolutely do not. Like, I could sign on tomorrow, and at least with Twitter, it doesn't work that way. It is who you are. I mean, tomorrow I could become prime minister, right? And I'm just new on social media, and I will be, the title is what it's not the amount of followers.
Exactly. Yeah.
At least with Twitter. I'm not sure with Instagram, but it's really who you are. It's the title. It's what you do that matters.
All right. Excellent. Well, I think we have to go because there's another session coming right after us.
Okay.
Thank you all for joining us. Really. Thank you, Harmony. Thank you, Keza. It was really an insightful session. Well, I'm just gonna drop in all our contact details. Follow us on Twitter, and please, don't hesitate. And you have our email addresses. If you have questions, go ahead and send us an email. Have a good afternoon or good evening. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for following us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, and sorry, there's another session. Basically, we encourage you to join the session. Please do. I'll just, and follow Africa Communications Week too.
Yeah.